Warning disclaimer. This story is a dramatized work of fiction. While inspired by true-to-life emotions and social situations, all characters, names, and events are entirely made up for storytelling purposes. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for mature or sensitive themes. This story is meant for entertainment only and does not promote or glorify any harmful behavior. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon, the kind where you plan to do absolutely nothing and feel great about it. I had just made myself a cup of chamomile tea, curled up on the couch with a blanket, and was scrolling aimlessly through social media. That's when my phone buzzed with a message I didn't expect. It was Jason, my best friend Kelsey's younger brother. I hadn't talked to him in years. The last time I saw him, he was maybe 16, still awkward and lanky, tagging along to our movie nights or asking if we could buy him snacks. Now he was 19, apparently, and texting me out of the blue. "Hey, sorry to bother you. Can you give me a quick ride? I'm at Miller's Diner. Long story. Please." I blinked at the message for a moment. Felt random. I wasn't particularly close to Jason. We'd never really had a full conversation on our own. He was always Kelsey's annoying little brother. Someone I smiled politely at and mostly ignored. But something about the tone of his message struck me. It felt rushed, maybe even desperate. I hesitated for a moment. My instinct said to ignore it. I barely knew the guy. Why me? But then I remembered how close I was to his sister. If Jason was in some kind of trouble and I just left him hanging, I'd never forgive myself, and Kelsey would be disappointed too. Besides, the diner was only 15 minutes away. What could possibly go wrong? I replied, "Sure, be there soon." As I drove, the streets looked peaceful, even sleepy. The summer sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue across the neighborhoods. My car smelled like citrus from the air freshener I just replaced, and my playlist was shuffling through slow indie tracks. Everything felt normal, too normal. I kept wondering why Jason wouldn't just call Kelsey, or maybe a friend his age. Why me? When I pulled into the parking lot of Miller's Diner, he was already waiting outside, sitting on the curb with a backpack clutched tightly to his chest. He stood up quickly when he saw my car, his face pale and damp with sweat despite the mild weather. I lowered the passenger window and raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" Yeah, he said quickly, jumping in and slamming the door behind him. "Just, thanks for coming. Seriously." I nodded, but something felt off already. His voice was shaky, and he kept glancing back at the diner like he expected someone to follow him. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I asked, "So, where are we going?" Jason didn't answer right away. He stared ahead for a moment, then mumbled, "Just drive straight for now. I'll tell you when to turn." And that was the moment I felt it. That slight chill in my gut, that warning bell in the back of my mind. Something about this wasn't right. And it was just the beginning. The silence in the car stretched uncomfortably as I drove forward, unsure of where I was even heading. Jason sat beside me, fidgeting with the zipper of his backpack. He hadn't said much since asking me to just drive straight. Every time I glanced at him, I noticed how tense he was, shoulders hunched, eyes darting to the rearview mirror every few seconds. His leg was bouncing nonstop, and his fingers tapped nervously against his thigh. "You sure everything's okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "You seem stressed." He forced a chuckle, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just complicated day." I waited for him to elaborate, but he didn't. The vague answers were starting to frustrate me. I wasn't just an Uber he randomly called. He reached out to me. He could have gone to anyone, but instead, here I was driving God knows where with someone acting like he was running from the mafia. I told myself maybe he was just embarrassed. Maybe he had a fight with someone or was going through something personal. I kept looking for logical explanations, but none of them felt solid enough. "Where are we going, Jason?" I asked again, firmer this time. "Just, can you take a left up here?" he said, pointing toward a less busy road. I recognized it. It led toward the industrial side of town. Factories, warehouses, storage facilities. Not exactly a friendly or safe-looking area, especially as the sun began to dip lower in the sky. I gave him a quick glance. You live out here now? No. I just need to grab something. I'll explain soon, I promise. Every part of my gut was now screaming for me to turn the car around. But I didn't. I guess part of me still believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt, especially someone I'd known, however distantly, for years. This was Kelsey's little brother. He wasn't dangerous, maybe just troubled. But then he reached into his bag, unzipped it just slightly, and checked inside. I caught a glimpse, just for a second, of something shiny. Could have been a flashlight, or it could have been something else. My hands tensed on the steering wheel. What's in the bag? I asked cautiously. Nothing. Just some stuff I don't want to leave behind. He answered quickly. Too quickly. That was it. I started mentally mapping out exits, thinking about where the nearest gas station or public place might be. My heart was thudding now, and I silently cursed myself for not trusting that first instinct to say no. He turned to look at me, his eyes suddenly intense. You're not going to tell Kelsey about this, right? I hesitated. I don't know. Should I? That made him pause. His jaw tightened. Let's just get there first. Then you'll understand. I swallowed hard and kept driving. The air in the car felt thicker now, heavy with tension and unspoken secrets. Something was very, very wrong, and I had the terrible feeling that whatever it was, I was now in it too. The moment I turned off the main road, everything changed. The scenery grew darker, more industrial, more abandoned. We passed rows of rusted chain-link fences, graffiti-tagged walls, and old shipping containers stacked like forgotten relics. Streetlights were sparse, and the sky had taken on a dusty orange hue as twilight approached. It felt like we had driven into a different world. One where people didn't just live, they hid. Jason stayed quiet, eyes locked on the road ahead. Every now and then, he would point silently to direct me. Right here, left there, another right, each turn taking us deeper into the neglected outskirts of town. We hadn't seen another vehicle for over 10 minutes. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. You said this would be quick, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Where exactly are we going? It's just up ahead, he replied, not even glancing at me. I wanted to scream. Every instinct I had was on high alert now. I thought about turning the car around, but we were in the middle of nowhere. No visible businesses, no people, just boarded-up buildings and cracked sidewalks. Then my phone buzzed on the dashboard. A small relief, maybe Kelsey. But when I picked it up, I realized I had no signal. I held it up, tilted it, even opened the window and raised it in the air. Still nothing. The bar was gone. I looked at Jason. My phone just lost service. He barely reacted. Yeah, that happens out here. Too many old radio towers. I didn't buy it. I knew this town, and I'd never had signal issues like this before. Not even in these areas. I felt trapped. The kind of trapped you don't admit out loud because then it becomes real. My mind raced through worst-case scenarios. What if he was on drugs? What if he was involved with something illegal? Or worse, what if this wasn't about errands or help at all? I'm pulling over, I said suddenly. Jason's head snapped toward me. What? No, we're almost there. I don't care. You're being shady as hell, Jason. I don't know what's going on, but you need to tell me right now or I'm turning this car around. He stared at me for a few seconds, like he was deciding something. Then he said quietly, Okay, just pull over right here. I'll explain. I slowed the car and stopped next to an overgrown gravel lot beside a long row of storage units. Jason looked nervous but composed, too composed for someone supposedly in trouble. He looked at me and exhaled deeply. I didn't want to get you involved, he said. But now that you're here, I need to tell you the truth. Everything about the way he said it sent chills down my spine, because there was no emotion in his voice. Not fear, not shame, nothing. The car engine was still running, but the air inside felt frozen. Jason looked straight ahead, hands clenched in his lap, jaw tight. For a moment he didn't speak. I waited, gripping the steering wheel like it might protect me from whatever was about to come out of his mouth. I messed up, he finally said, voice low and even. I got involved with some guys. They're not good people. My stomach twisted. What do you mean, not good people? I mean the kind who don't ask questions when you do them a favor, he said, glancing at me. The kind who pay you to deliver packages, no return address, no names. I thought it was harmless. Easy money. I stared at him, trying to process. He looked so calm saying it. No panic, no guilt, like he'd rehearsed the story. I wasn't sure if that made it more believable or more terrifying. So you were running errands for criminals? I said slowly. Why me? Why ask me for a ride? Jason finally turned to face me. Because you wouldn't ask too many questions. You'd feel obligated since I'm Kelsey's brother. And because I didn't want anyone else knowing where I was going. That last sentence chilled me to the bone. He opened his backpack and pulled it onto his lap. I tensed instantly, but he only unzipped it halfway, just enough to let me peek inside. Bundles of cash. Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands of dollars loosely wrapped in rubber bands. There was also a black envelope with something bulky inside it. They gave me this to hold for 48 hours. I was supposed to keep it quiet, but I got paranoid. I think they're watching me now, following me. That's why I asked for a ride. I needed to grab what I hid and disappear. Disappear? I echoed. Jason, what the hell are you talking about? You're a kid. What did you get yourself into? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pointed to the row of storage units just a few feet away from the car. I stashed something important in Unit 306. Just give me 5 minutes, okay? Then I'll explain everything. I swear. I didn't know what to say. Every fiber of logic screamed leave now, but some part of me, maybe fear, maybe curiosity, kept me frozen in place. I nodded stiffly. Jason stepped out of the car and jogged toward the storage row, disappearing into the dim space between units. I sat there gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my fingers ached. I kept glancing at the clock, counting down the 5 minutes he asked for. Then 6 minutes passed, then 7, and still no sign of him. Something was wrong, very wrong. I turned off the engine, stepped out cautiously, and walked toward the storage units. My shoes crunched on gravel. The further I went, the more silent the world seemed. I stopped in front of Unit 306. The door was slightly open. I pushed it with trembling fingers, and what I saw inside made my blood run cold. The metal door creaked loudly as I pushed it open, its rusted hinges echoing through the quiet lot. A flickering overhead light buzzed above, casting sharp shadows across the cold concrete floor of the unit. At first glance, it looked empty, just a dim, damp space with a strange metallic smell. But then, my eyes adjusted, and I saw what Jason had hidden. In the center of the storage unit sat a black duffel bag, open, half spilled, filled with more stacks of cash and sealed plastic packets. Drugs? Documents? I wasn't sure. Nearby was a small metal table, and on it, photos. Dozens of them. I stepped closer, my breath catching in my throat. They were pictures of me. Some were recent, me at the grocery store, leaving my gym, sitting in the coffee shop I go to every Thursday. Others were older, taken through the window of my apartment or from behind as I walked home. Different angles, different times of day. Some blurry, some crystal clear. All of them unmistakably me. I felt sick. Pinned beside the photos were notes scribbled in Jason's handwriting. Bits of information, my schedule, my favorite places, who I talked to, what time I left home. One line, written in red ink, stood out among them all. She notices patterns. She'll figure it out eventually. I backed away, my vision spinning. My heart was beating so hard it physically hurt. What was this? Was Jason stalking me? Was this some twisted obsession he'd been hiding for years? How long had this been going on? I turned, ready to run, but nearly screamed when I saw Jason standing at the entrance of the unit, his face calm, almost amused. You weren't supposed to see that yet, he said quietly. My breath hitched. What is this, Jason? What the hell is this? He walked in slowly, hands in his pockets like he was giving a tour. I told you I needed your help. I didn't say why. My body was screaming to run, but I couldn't move. He continued talking like we were having a normal conversation. I used to watch you all the time. You never noticed. You were always so focused, so perfect. You're not like Kelsey. You never looked through me." He tilted his head. "You looked past me. And I couldn't let that happen forever." I took a step back. "This is sick, Jason. You need help. Real help." He chuckled softly. "I already got help. I just needed you to see it. To finally see me." I bolted. My legs finally remembered how to move. I sprinted out of the unit, not looking back, fumbling for my phone. Still no signal. My only hope was to make it back to the car and drive until I found reception or someone. As I reached the driver's side door and yanked it open, I realized something chilling. Jason hadn't followed, because he didn't need to. He knew exactly where I was going. And he wasn't finished yet. I slammed the door shut and locked it instantly, heart pounding so violently I could barely breathe. My hands trembled as I jammed the keys into the ignition and started the car. The headlights blinked on, flooding the dusty gravel with pale light. I looked in every direction, but Jason was nowhere in sight. Where had he gone? I threw the car into reverse, tires crunching as I backed out fast. My one thought was to get far away and call for help the second I regained signal. But as I shifted into drive, a loud metallic clang made me jump. The front gate, our only exit, had slammed shut. Jason stood in front of it. His figure was outlined in the orange light of the setting sun, casting a long shadow across the ground. He wasn't holding anything, wasn't shouting. He just stood there, still like a statue. The air felt heavier with every second that passed. I couldn't move the car forward, not with him in the way. Not unless I wanted to run him over. And part of me honestly considered it. I slowly rolled down the window halfway. "Open the gate, Jason. I'm done with this." He walked toward the car, slow and deliberate. His calmness made it worse. He looked like a different person now, expressionless, eyes flat. No trace of the nervous, anxious boy who asked for a ride. "You weren't supposed to react like that," he said, voice eerily steady. "You were supposed to understand." "Understand what? That you've been watching me? That you lured me here under false pretenses?" I tried to keep my voice strong, but it cracked. "Jason, you need to let me go. Now." He rested his hands on the hood of my car, leaning forward slightly, staring into the windshield. "You don't get it. You always saw me as a little kid. Background noise. Even after all these years. Even when I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" I hissed. "From what?" "From everyone else. From the people who don't notice you, who don't care. I watched because I had to. I saw how alone you really were." His voice broke slightly at the end, like he truly believed what he was saying. That was the most terrifying part. He didn't think this was wrong. He thought this was some kind of act of love. "Jason, this isn't love," I said quietly. "This is obsession. This is control. Please, don't make this worse than it already is." He didn't answer, just stared at me, and then slowly walked around to the driver's side. I hit the lock button again, twice, panicking now. But it was too late. He pulled something from his back pocket. A crowbar. I screamed, shifting the car into reverse, tires screeching as I backed away. He swung at the window once. Crack! A spiderweb of broken glass bloomed across the side. I didn't wait. I floored it backward, spun the wheel, and flew down the gravel path in the opposite direction. Behind me, I could hear him yelling, but I didn't stop. This wasn't just obsession anymore. It was war. The tires screeched as I made a sharp turn out of the lot, gravel and dust flying behind me like a storm. The windshield had a fine crack running across it from the impact, and my hands could barely grip the wheel. I was shaking so hard I felt like I could pass out. Every second counted now. I had no plan, no GPS, no signal. Just survival instinct. I sped down the dark road, twisting through the maze of industrial buildings, trying to retrace our path, but everything looked the same. Empty. Abandoned. There were no signs, no people, just silence and shadows. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Nothing. No one following me. And then headlights. In the distance. Getting closer. My chest tightened. I didn't know if it was him, but I couldn't take the risk. I pressed harder on the gas. My car wasn't built for speed, but adrenaline was a powerful fuel. Every corner I took felt like a gamble. Was I heading toward help or deeper into nowhere? Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, I saw a faint glow in the distance. A gas station, dimly lit and old, but still open, like a flicker of hope in a nightmare. I swerved into the parking lot, nearly hitting the curb as I slammed the brakes. I jumped out of the car, ignoring the pain in my legs and the panic tightening my chest. "Help! Please!" I screamed, running toward the clerk inside. The door chimed as I burst in. The man behind the counter looked startled, mid-swipe on his phone. "Call 911, I gasped. "Please, he's trying to hurt me." Without hesitation, he reached for the phone. "Are you hurt? Is he following you?" "I don't know," I said, glancing over my shoulder. The road was empty, for now. I heard him give the dispatcher the address, and within minutes, flashing lights painted the station in red and blue. I sank onto the cold floor inside the store, every muscle in my body trembling, tears finally falling. I had held it together for so long, but now that I was safe, truly safe, I crumbled. The police questioned me gently but urgently. I told them everything about Jason, the storage unit, the photos, the crowbar. They listened, exchanging glances, writing things down. They took my cracked phone and promised to check the unit immediately. Within 20 minutes, they had Jason in custody. He'd been trying to leave the area on foot, carrying his bag of money and that black envelope. He didn't resist arrest. In fact, according to one officer, he just smiled. Later, they confirmed what I had feared. Jason had been watching me for months. The ride was never just a ride. It was a trap, a calculated setup. He had planned the whole thing. But I was lucky. I got out. Barely. Days later, I still couldn't sleep. The police told me I'd done everything right, that I was lucky to have escaped, that it could have ended much worse. But their reassurances didn't calm the racing thoughts that stormed my mind every night when the lights went off. I kept hearing the crowbar hit the window. I kept seeing Jason's face, blank, unreadable, as he stood under that fading sunset, like the whole thing was just a misunderstanding in his head. Kelsey came over the next day, completely distraught. She'd found out through the police, then through her parents, and eventually from me, though she could barely look me in the eye. "I didn't know," she said over and over again. "I swear, I didn't know he was like that. He's had issues, but nothing like this. Never this." I didn't blame her, but I couldn't look at her the same way either. The idea that her brother had watched me for months, studied me, targeted me, and no one around him had noticed, left a crack in my sense of safety that couldn't be sealed. The police told me Jason would be facing multiple charges: criminal trespassing, stalking, attempted assault with a weapon, and possession of illegal substances. They'd also found tracking notes on several other people, mostly women he knew tangentially through family or work. I wasn't the only one, just the only one who had gotten close enough for him to act on it. I moved apartments within a week, different neighborhood, gated complex. I installed security cameras, changed my phone number, and even started therapy. My friends checked in constantly, but I knew most of them didn't know what to say. What could you say to someone who had almost been abducted by someone they thought they knew? Eventually, the adrenaline wore off, and the silence settled in. That's when the real damage showed up. The fear that came every time I walked through a parking lot alone, the second-guessing when someone asked for help, the nausea when I saw someone standing too close at a bus stop. Every small moment of everyday life now came with a shadow of doubt. But slowly I began to rebuild, piece by piece. Some things you can't forget, but you can survive them. I decided to share my story publicly, not for sympathy, but for awareness. Because the truth is, sometimes danger doesn't come in the form of a masked man in a dark alley. Sometimes it shows up in your inbox with a friendly, familiar name. Sometimes it rides quietly in the passenger seat of your own car. And that's what I want people to remember. It wasn't a stranger who nearly hurt me. It was someone I thought I could trust. G22.